The stars were dying. One by one, entire solar systems went dark as the void swarm consumed everything in its path. Commander Vexhai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another red dot appear on the galactic map. That red dot had been the Thyman system just 12 hours ago. 3 billion souls lived there. Now it was nothing but empty space and twisted metal. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the Fourth Fleet," his communications officer said. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Admiral Krentok forces engaged the swarm at Meridian 7. They didn't make it out?" Vexhai closed his eyes. The Fourth Fleet had been their strongest battle group. 200 ships, gone in less than 6 hours. The Zeltheran Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, but now they were dying. Like everyone else, the Void Swarm had appeared 3 years ago from somewhere beyond the known galaxy. At first, the Coalition thought they were just another hostile species. They had dealt with aggressive aliens before. But this was different. The Swarm didn't want territory or resources. They wanted everything. They consumed entire worlds, turning planets into empty husks. They took the metal from ships, the minerals from asteroids, even the gases from nebulae. Everything fed their endless hunger. "How many fleets do we have left?" Vexhai asked his tactical officer. 17 operational battle groups across all. "Coalition species, sir." The Korthic hegemony lost another 3 fleets at Beacon's Edge yesterday. The Manthari Collective is down to their home defense force. 17 fleets to defend a galaxy. 3 years ago, the Coalition had commanded over 200 battle groups. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. At their current rate of loss, they had perhaps 6 months before total defeat. Vexhai walked to the main view screen. Space looked peaceful from here, but he knew better. Somewhere out there, the swarm's biomechanical ships were moving toward their next target. The enemy vessels looked like giant insects made of metal and living tissue. They could repair themselves, adapt to new weapons, and coordinate perfectly across vast distances. Fighting them was like fighting a disease that learned from every treatment. "Sir," his science officer called out, "we're detecting massive energy readings from the Helix Nebula. It looks like they're building something." The tactical display shifted to show the nebula. What Vexhai saw made his blood freeze. The swarm had constructed a massive structure in the nebula's heart. It pulsed with dark energy, and streams of smaller ships flowed in and out like blood vessels feeding a heart. "Analysis?" he asked. "Unknown purpose, sir. But the energy output is unlike anything we've ever seen. If they're building weapons of that magnitude..." Vexhai didn't need her to finish. Whatever the swarm was creating, it would end the war quickly. The Coalition had perhaps weeks, not months. An alarm sounded across the bridge. "Emergency transmission from Coalition Command," the communications officer announced. "All remaining fleet commanders are ordered to attend an immediate council session." The holographic conference room materialized around Vexhai's command chair. One by one, the remaining Coalition leaders appeared as flickering blue images. Admiral Kothe of the hegemony looked exhausted, his usually pristine uniform torn and blood-stained. General Theises of the Manthari showed signs of recent combat. Her chitinous armor cracked down one side. High Chancellor Morden of the Coalition spoke first. His ancient voice carried the weight of desperate authority. "Fellow commanders, our situation has become critical beyond measure. Intelligence reports indicate the swarm is constructing what appears to be a superweapon in the Helix Nebula. Our best estimates give us 14 days before its completion." Murmurs of dismay echoed through the holographic space. Admiral Korthas spoke up. "What are our options?" "Limited," Morden replied. "We can attempt a coordinated strike on the Nebula, but our forces would be insufficient. We could evacuate to the Rim territories and hope to rebuild, but the swarm would eventually find us, or..." He paused, looking directly at Vexhai. "Commander, your science division has been working on the Quantum Beacon project. Is it operational?" Vexhai felt every eye in the conference focus on him. The Quantum Beacon was their most desperate gambit. It could send messages across vast distances, even to the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. but the project had been dismissed by most commanders as useless fantasy. "The beacon is functional," Vexhai said carefully. "But the outer rim territories are largely unexplored. Our surveys indicate mostly primitive civilizations, if any. The chance of finding someone capable of helping us is minimal," Admiral Korthai interrupted. "We're talking about sending distress calls to barbarians who barely understand fire, let alone space travel." "Perhaps," Morden said quietly. "But what other choice do we have? If there's even a small chance that someone out there has the power to help us, shouldn't we try?" The debate that followed lasted 2 hours. Some argued for evacuation. Others wanted to make a final stand at the Coalition homeworlds. A few suggested surrender, though everyone knew the swarm didn't take prisoners. In the end, they voted. 13 commanders for activation, 4 against, 2 abstentions. "Very well," Morden said. "Commander Vexhai, prepare your beacon. Send." Our plea to anyone who might be listening. The conference ended, leaving Vexhai alone with his thoughts. He walked to his personal quarters and stared out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness, his people were dying. Children who would never grow up. Artists who would never create again. Scientists whose discoveries would be lost forever. He activated his personal communicator. "This is the commander. Begin quantum beacon preparation. Full power transmission to all outer rim coordinates." 3 hours later, Vexhai stood in the beacon chamber deep within his ship. The massive crystalline structure hummed with barely contained energy. His communications team had prepared the message carefully. It contained everything. Star charts showing the swarm's advance, tactical data about their capabilities, and most importantly, a simple plea for help. "Beacon is ready, sir," his chief technician reported. "We have enough power for a single transmission to reach the galactic rim." Vexhai placed his hand on the activation controls. This was probably foolish. The outer rim was empty space and dead worlds, but what choice did they have? "To anyone who can hear this," he said into the recording device, "we are the Galactic Coalition. Our civilization is dying. An enemy from beyond our galaxy is destroying everything we have built. We have tried to fight, but we are losing. If you have the power to help, please. We have children who will never see tomorrow." He pressed the activation key. The beacon fired, sending its message racing across space at impossible speeds. The quantum pulse carried their words, their data, and their desperate hope toward the rim territories where nothing was supposed to live. On the bridge afterward, Vexhai watched another star system go dark on the tactical display. The swarm had taken the Valdris colonies. 400 million people, gone. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting swarm movement toward the Kepler system." Vexhai nodded. Kepler was home to the Coalition's largest civilian evacuation center. 3 billion refugees from dozens of worlds waited there for transport to safer systems. But there were no safer systems anymore. "Set course for Kepler," he ordered, "maximum speed." As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Vexhai wondered if his message would ever reach anyone. The outer rim seemed so far away, so empty. What were the chances that someone out there had both received his plea and possessed the power to answer it? Meanwhile, at the very edge of known space, a small monitoring station orbited a blue-green world. The quantum pulse struck its receivers like a thunderbolt. Alarms sounded through the facility as technicians scrambled to decode the message. Admiral Sarah June arrived at the communications center within minutes. She had been expecting this call for months. Humanity had been watching the galaxy burn, hidden by technology the Coalition couldn't imagine. They had debated and planned and prepared while entire civilizations died. The message played through the station's speakers, an alien voice speaking words of desperation and hope. June listened to every word, studying the tactical data that accompanied the plea. "Get me a direct line to Terra Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha?" The holographic image of Fleet Admiral Rodriguez appeared immediately. "Admiral Chun, I assume you've received the Coalition's distress call?" "Yes, sir. They're requesting immediate assistance. The swarm is accelerating their advance." Our intelligence estimates 12 days before complete coalition collapse. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. Through the hologram, Chun could see him reviewing data on his personal display. Finally, he spoke. The Senate voted 3 hours ago. The final Armada is authorized for immediate deployment. You have full tactical command, Admiral. Bring our people home, Chun smiled grimly. Understood, sir. Initiating Phase 1 deployment now. Across human space, thousands of ships began moving. The final Armada, humanity's greatest military achievement, prepared for war. They had spent centuries developing weapons and tactics for a threat the galaxy had never imagined. Now it was time to test their theories against reality, the void. Swarm had consumed half the galaxy, but they had never faced. The resort world of Nauthes burned beneath a crimson sky. What had once been crystal beaches and floating cities was now a hellscape of twisted metal and screaming refugees. The Void Swarm had arrived 6 hours ago, and already half the planet was gone. Captain Zelandra fought back tears as she watched another transport ship explode on her view screen. The evacuation fleet was trying to save as many civilians as possible, but the swarm's bioships moved like predators among sheep. Every few minutes, another rescue vessel would disappear in a flash of dark energy. "Captain, we have to leave," her helmsman said. "The swarm is breaking through our defensive line." Through the bridge windows, Zelandra could see coalition warships making their final stand above the planet. Admiral Morthic's battle group was down to 12 ships from their original 50. They were buying time with their lives, giving the transports precious minutes to escape. "Signal all remaining evacuation ships," she ordered. "Emergency jump to rally point 7. We leave in 60 seconds. As her ship prepared to flee, Zelandra watched the surface of Nauthes change color. The swarm's feeding machines were draining the planet's core, turning a living world into an empty shell. In 12 hours, nothing would remain but dust and twisted metal. The jump to hyperspace felt like abandoning her soul. At rally point 7, hundreds of refugee ships waited in the darkness between stars. Medical vessels moved between the transports, treating the wounded and trying to process the survivors. The numbers were horrifying. Nauthes had been home to 800 million people. They had saved perhaps 50 million. Commander Vexhi's flagship arrived at the rally point 3 hours later. He had been fighting a running battle across 4 systems, trying to slow the swarm's advance. His ship showed fresh battle damage, and his crew looked exhausted. "Status report," he ordered as he entered the command center. 17 transport groups have reached safety, Captain Zelandra reported. "But we lost the entire 4th evacuation fleet to swarm interceptors. The enemy is moving faster than our intelligence predicted." Vexhi studied the tactical display. Red markers showed swarm positions advancing across coalition space like a disease. In the past week alone, they had lost 12 more systems. The evacuation effort was saving lives, but it couldn't continue much longer. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving strange reports from our scout ships." "What kind of reports?" "Ships going silent, sir." "Not destroyed? Just ... quiet?" Scout Captain Moralek was investigating the Deneb system yesterday. He reported massive swarm concentrations, then his signal cut out. "But when the backup scout arrived?" "This morning they found empty space." Vexhi frowned. "Equipment failure? That's what we thought initially. But it's happening across multiple sectors." The hegemony lost contact with 3 scout groups in the outer spiral. When they sent investigation teams, they found debris from swarm bioships floating in space, but no sign of what destroyed them. Captain Zelandra looked up from her own reports. The Manthari Collective reported something similar near the Veil. Nebula, an entire swarm-feeding cluster, just disappeared overnight. No energy signatures, no battle traces, nothing. "Impossible," Vexhi muttered. "Swarm bioships don't just die on their own. They're too heavily armored, too adaptive." But even as he spoke, more reports arrived. Scout ships across the galaxy were finding the same thing. Swarm forces that should have been advancing were instead floating dead in space. The biomechanical vessels showed no signs of weapon damage. No evidence of conventional attack. Meanwhile, 3 light-years away, Captain Marcus Torres watched through his destroyer's viewscreen as another swarm cluster writhed in its death throes. The massive bioships, each one the size of a city, convulsed as their neural networks collapsed. What had been a coordinated hive mind minutes ago was now just floating meat and metal. Neural cascade successful, his weapons officer reported. All enemy vessels in the target zone are neutralized. Torres nodded. The weapon they had just fired was humanity's greatest secret. While the Coalition fought with lasers and missiles, human scientists had developed something far more sophisticated. The neural cascade device could sever the psychic links that bound hive mind creatures, turning an organized enemy into confused individuals. Cloak status? He asked, Void Cloak. Is holding steady, his engineer replied. Enemy sensors show no indication they detected us. Torres smiled grimly. The Void Cloak was another human innovation that the galaxy had never seen. It didn't just hide their ships from sensors. It made them invisible to all forms of detection. They could fly through enemy formations without being noticed. Take us to the next target, he ordered. Swarm Group Delta 7 should be feeding in the Meridian system. As the destroyer Retribution moved through space, it passed within kilometers of a Coalition scout ship. The alien vessel's sensors swept the area repeatedly, searching for any sign of what had destroyed the swarm cluster. They found nothing. Torres felt a moment of sympathy for the Coalition forces. They were fighting bravely against impossible odds, not knowing that help was already here. But Admiral Chen had been clear about their orders. Humanity would reveal itself when the time was right. Not before. The final Armada had been deployed for 6 weeks now, moving through the galaxy like ghosts. 2,800 human ships, from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts, struck at swarm forces across dozens of systems. They appeared from nothing, destroyed their targets, and vanished again before anyone could respond. From her flagship Terra's Wrath, Admiral Sarah Chung coordinated the Ghost War. The massive dreadnought hung in empty space near the galactic rim, its hull scarred by battles the Coalition would never know about. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of every human ship, every swarm cluster, every Coalition fleet. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, Strike Group 7 has eliminated the feeding cluster at Proxima Drift. No survivors, no witnesses. Total time of engagement, 14 minutes. Excellent. What about the Helix Nebula situation? Commander. Elena Vasquez, Chun's intelligence chief, stepped forward. Our deep reconnaissance confirms the swarm is building some kind of superweapon. The structure is larger than anything we've seen before. If they complete it, they won't, Chun said firmly. How long until our neural storm prototype is ready? 3 days, Admiral. The device is designed to target the superweapons control system specifically, but deploying it will require getting within 2,000 kilometers of the structure. Chun studied the tactical display showing the Helix Nebula. The swarm had turned the entire region into a fortress, with thousands of bioships protecting their construction project. Even with their superior technology, penetrating those defenses would be costly. Begin preparation of Strike Group Alpha, she ordered. If we're going to stop that weapon, we'll need our best ships and crews. Back at Rally Point 7, Commander Vex-High was dealing with growing desperation among the Coalition forces. Food. Supplies were running low, and the refugee ships were overcrowded beyond safe limits. Worse, the swarm seemed to be accelerating their advance. Sir, Captain Zilandra reported, we've lost contact with the defense fleet at Korthik Prime. The Hegemony's homeworld is under attack. Vex-High closed his eyes. Korthik Prime was supposed to be impregnable, protected by massive defense platforms and 3 full battle fleets. If the swarm had broken through there, nowhere was safe. What about evacuation of the core worlds? He asked. In progress, but the transport capacity is insufficient. We can save perhaps 10% of the population before the swarm arrives. The mathematics of genocide were simple and horrible. Billions would die because they simply couldn't build ships fast enough to carry them all away. "Sir," his science officer called out, "I'm detecting something unusual. Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy discharges from the Swarm Advance fleet near Arcturus." The tactical display shifted to show the Arcturus system. What they saw made no sense. The swarm bioships that had been advancing on the system were now floating motionless in space. Energy readings indicated massive neural cascade failures. "Across the entire fleet? Another equipment malfunction?" Zelandra asked. "No," the science officer replied, studying her readings more carefully. "This pattern is too precise, too organized. Something attacked these ships with weapons designed specifically to target their nervous systems." Vexhai stared at the display. In 6 weeks, they had received dozens of reports like this. Swarm fleets simply dying without explanation. No evidence of attackers, no trace of conventional weapons. It was as if some invisible force was systematically hunting the enemy. Could there be survivors from the Outer Rim? He wondered aloud. Some civilization we didn't know about? "Impossible," Zelandra said. "Our surveys of the Rim territories were thorough. Nothing out there but dead worlds and primitive species." But even as she spoke, both officers found themselves staring at the tactical display. The pattern of swarm losses was too organized to be coincidence. Someone was fighting the enemy, someone with weapons and tactics the Coalition had never seen, 3 systems away. Captain Torres guided the Retribution through another swarm patrol formation. The bioships moved around his cloaked destroyer like blind giants, their sensors unable to detect the human. Commander Vexhai's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Femin system, expecting to find another graveyard. Intelligence reports had indicated a massive swarm feeding operation here, with over 10,000 bioships consuming everything in the system. Instead, his sensors detected something impossible. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "you need to see this." The main view screen showed the Femin system spread out before them. Floating in perfect formation were thousands of swarm bioships, each one the size of a mountain. They hung motionless in space like sleeping giants, no energy readings. Number. Movement, no signs of life at all. Status of the enemy fleet? Vexhai asked, though he already knew the answer would be strange. "All vessels appear to be dead, sir. No energy signatures, no neural activity, no response to our scans. It's like someone just turned them off." Captain Zelandra joined Vexhai at the view screen. Together they stared at the impossible sight. A swarm hive cluster of this size should have been consuming planets, not floating dead in space. "Battle damage?" she asked. "None visible, Captain. The ships are completely intact. No weapon burns, no hull breaches, no debris fields. They just stopped working." Vexhai made a decision that would change history. "Take us in for close examination. Science teams to the ready. I want to know what killed these things." As the Coalition fleet moved deeper into the system, teams of scientists prepared their equipment. This was the first time anyone had been able to study dead swarm vessels up close. The biomechanical ships were mysteries wrapped in living metal and alien technology. Dr. Indar, the fleet's chief scientist, led the first boarding party onto a swarm destroyer. What she found inside defied explanation. The ship's bio-neural networks showed signs of catastrophic cascade failure. Every nerve cluster, every control node, every thinking part of the vessel had simply died at the same instant. "It's like something severed all the neural connections simultaneously," she reported to Vexhai. "But there's no physical damage, too. The networks themselves. Whatever did this was incredibly precise. Could this be some kind of disease?" Vexhai asked. "Negative, sir. This wasn't biological. The pattern suggests some form of targeted energy weapon, but unlike anything in our databases. The technology required to do this is far beyond current Coalition capabilities." As the investigation continued, more impossible details emerged. The swarm ships had been killed in perfect synchronization across the entire system. Whatever had Attack them had done so from multiple positions simultaneously, suggesting a level of coordination that seemed impossible. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command. Admiral Morden wants an immediate status report." The holographic conference activated, showing the grim faces of the remaining coalition leadership. Admiral Morden looked even more tired than before, his ancient features marked by weeks of constant crisis. "Commander Vexhai, please tell me you have some good news." "Sir, we've discovered something extraordinary at Thyman. An entire swarm hive cluster, over 10,000 ships, completely neutralized. No survivors, no damage to our forces." Excited murmurs rippled through the conference. This was the first major victory anyone had reported in months. "How did you manage it?" Admiral Corthay asked. "We didn't, sir. When we arrived, the enemy was already dead. Killed by unknown weapons using technology we don't understand." The excitement died quickly. General Theises leaned forward in her hologram. "Are you suggesting another species is involved in this conflict?" "I don't know what I'm suggesting," Vexhai replied honestly. "But someone or something is systematically destroying swarm forces across the galaxy. Our scout reports indicate dozens of similar incidents over the past several weeks." Admiral Morden was quiet for a long moment. "Commander, continue your investigation. If there's another player in this war, we need to know who they are." The conference ended, leaving Vexhai with more questions than answers. As his science teams worked to understand what had happened at Thyman, he ordered long-range sensors to sweep the system perimeter. If someone had destroyed the swarm fleet, they might still be in the area. What the sensors found changed everything. "Sir," the sensor operator said, his voice shaking, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is out there. Swarm reinforcements?" "Negative, sir. The energy patterns are completely different." "I've never seen readings like this before." On the tactical display, dots of light began to appear at the system's edge. One by one, they materialized from nothing, as if stepping out of empty space itself. The coalition fleet watched in stunned silence as nearly 3,000 ships became visible, their sleek forms unlike anything in galactic records. The largest vessel was beyond anything the coalition had ever built. Over a kilometer long, its hull was scarred by battles fought in the depths of space. Smaller ships surrounded it in perfect formation, their designs elegant and deadly. "Sir," the communications officer whispered, "we're being hailed. On screen." The view screen shifted to show the bridge of the massive alien vessel. The figure standing at its center was clearly humanoid, but different from any known species. Shorter than most coalition races, with pale skin and dark hair, wearing a uniform that spoke of military discipline and advanced technology. "Coalition vessel, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Final Armada. Permission to come aboard for immediate consultation regarding our mutual enemy." Vexhai found his voice after a moment of shock. "Admiral Chun, this is Commander Vexhai of the Coalition Fleet. You are welcome aboard. Who are you?" "We are the species that received your distress call, Commander. We apologize for the delay in making contact. We wanted to understand the threat before introducing ourselves." The next few hours passed in a blur of impossible revelations. Admiral Chun materialized on Vexhai's bridge using transport technology that seemed like magic. She was accompanied by several officers, all from the same unknown species. They called themselves humans, and they came from a world called Earth near the galactic rim. "Your message reached us 6 weeks ago," Chun explained as she studied the Coalition bridge with professional interest. "We've been fighting the Void Swarm ever since." "Fighting them?" Vexhai asked. "But we had no reports of any major battles in the Rim territories." "You wouldn't have. Our ships use stealth technology that renders them invisible to most sensors. We've been conducting what you might call a ghost war." Captain Zalandra stepped forward. "The mysterious swarm losses we've been detecting." "That was you?" "Correct. We've eliminated approximately 40% of the enemy's forward forces over the past 6 weeks. The neural cascade weapons you discovered here are of human design. The implications hit Vex High like a physical blow. While the Coalition had been fighting and dying, these humans had been systematically destroying swarm forces without anyone knowing they existed. "Why help us?" he asked. "You could have stayed hidden, stayed safe." Hyun's expression grew serious. "Because isolation is not survival, Commander. Because genocide is genocide, regardless of the species. And because someone has to draw the line." Dr. Indar, who had been studying the tricorder readings from the destroyed swarm ships, looked up with wonder in her eyes. "Admiral, your neural cascade technology. It's specifically designed to target hive mind entities. How did you know to develop such weapons?" "We've been preparing for this war for centuries," Chun replied. "Not this specific conflict, but the theoretical possibility of facing a hive mind enemy. Human military doctrine includes extensive planning for asymmetric threats." "Centuries?" Vexai repeated. "But your species was listed as primitive in our rim surveys," Chun smiled grimly. "We know. We've been watching the galaxy for a long time, Commander. Staying hidden, learning, preparing. When your message arrived, we were already mobilized and ready to respond." Admiral Morden's voice crackled through the communications system. "Commander Vexhai, we're detecting massive energy readings throughout your system. Report your status immediately." Vexhai looked at Chun, who nodded permission. "Admiral Morden, I'm transmitting visual data now. We've made contact with the force responsible for the mysterious swarm losses." The holographic conference activated again, this time including Admiral Chun. The Coalition leadership stared in amazement at the human officer standing on Vexhai's bridge. "Greetings," Chun said formally. "I am Admiral Sarah Chun, commanding the Terran Final Armada. We received your distress call and have been engaged in combat operations against the Void Swarm for the past 6 weeks. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Admiral Morden found his voice. "Terran? We have no record of your species in our databases." "That was intentional," Chun replied. "We've observed galactic civilization for centuries while maintaining our isolation." "Your current crisis convinced us that isolation was no longer sustainable?" "How many ships do you command?" General Thizes asked. 2,800 vessels currently deployed, with additional reserves available if required. Admiral Korthai leaned forward. "What do you want in return for your assistance?" Chun's answer was simple and devastating. "Nothing. The Void Swarm represents an existential threat to all sentient life. We will not stand by while entire civilizations are consumed." The Battle of Coridian's Gate began at dawn on the 4th day of joint human coalition operations. Commander Vexhai stood on his bridge, watching as human and alien ships moved together in perfect coordination. 3 weeks of combined training had transformed both fleets into something neither could have achieved alone. "All ships report ready, sir," Captain Zelandra announced. "The humans are in position for the neural storm attack." Through the viewscreen, Vexhai could see the massive swarm-feeding cluster that had been consuming the Coridian system for 2 days. Over 5,000 bioships worked like hungry insects, stripping planets bare and sending resources toward the mysterious superweapon in the Helix Nebula. Captain Marcus Torres guided his destroyer Retribution through the Coalition formation. His ship looked different now, fitted with Zelfin shield generators and Korthic weapon systems. The hybrid design represented something new in galactic warfare, the combination of human innovation with Coalition engineering. "Torres to all vessels," he broadcast on the Joint Command frequency. "Neural storm deployment in 30 seconds. Coalition ships, prepare for coordinated strike on my mark." Beside Torres on his bridge stood Sub-Commander Kelthara, a young Zeltheran officer assigned to learn human tactics. Over the past weeks, she had watched in amazement as human crews worked with impossible precision and coordination. "Captain," she said, "your neural cascade weapons. How do they work so perfectly?" "Against the swarm?" Torres smiled as he watched his weapons officer prepare the neural storm device. "We spent 300 years studying hive mind theory, Sub-Commander. Every possible way a collective intelligence might organize itself, every weakness it might When we finally met a real hive mind, we were ready. But why prepare for something that didn't exist? Because eventually it would exist. Humans learned long ago that the universe is vast and dangerous. We prepare for threats we haven't met yet. The neural storm fired at exactly the planned moment. Unlike the smaller neural cascade weapons, this device created a spreading field of energy that severed hive mind connections across an entire star system. The effect was immediate and devastating. Swarm bioships began convulsing throughout the Coridian system. The coordinated feeding operation collapsed as thousands of vessels lost contact with their central intelligence. Individual bioships, no longer part of the greater whole, drifted helplessly in space. Now! Vexhai shouted into his communicator. All Coalition forces, attack pattern Delta 7. The combined fleet struck like a sword of light. Coalition ships, no longer afraid of perfect swarm coordination, pressed their attacks with newfound confidence. Human vessels provided support with weapons that seemed to anticipate every enemy move. Dr. Indar, now serving as scientific liaison between the fleets, watched the battle from her position on the Terra's Wrath. Admiral Chun's flagship was a marvel of technology that made Coalition vessels seem primitive by comparison. Admiral, she said to Chun, your tactical predictions are incredibly accurate. How do you anticipate swarm movements so precisely? Chun gestured toward the holographic battle display that surrounded her command station. Centuries of simulation. Doctor, we've fought this battle thousands of times in computer models. Every possible swarm tactic, every response, every counter-response. Today is just the practical application of theory. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Coridian system was free for the first time in months. Over 4,000 swarm bioships floated dead in space, their neural networks severed by human weapons. Coalition forces had lost only 37 vessels, the lowest casualty rate since the war began. Impossible, whispered Admiral Korthai as he reviewed the battle reports. We actually won. The victory at Coridian's gate changed everything. Within days, news of the successful battle spread throughout Coalition space. For the first time in 3 years, civilian populations heard stories of victory. Instead of evacuation orders, but the political implications rippled through the galaxy like waves from a dropped stone. In the Korthic hegemony's capital, Ancient, generals struggled with wounded pride as they studied human tactical manuals. The hegemony had ruled through military might for 2,000 years. Now they found themselves students, learning from a species they had never heard of. General Vorthak slammed his fist on the conference table. These humans make us look like children playing with toys. Their weapons, their tactics, their technology, it's all beyond us. Admiral Korthadi, still bitter from years of defeat, nodded grimly. They've been watching us for centuries, learning our weaknesses while we remained ignorant of their existence. Now they arrive as our saviors, and we're supposed to be grateful. Would you prefer extinction? Asked Chancellor Morthic quietly. Because that was our alternative. The debate raged for hours. Some Korthak leaders welcomed humanity as liberators. Others saw them as a threat to the natural order of galactic civilization. The humans were too advanced, too capable, too different. From the established powers, similar arguments occurred throughout Coalition space. The Manthari Collective proposed immediate alliance membership for humanity, offering them full representation in galactic government. The Zelthuran Empire wanted to form exclusive military partnerships, hoping to gain access to human technology. Admiral Chun watched these political maneuverings from her flagship with bemused interest. Commander Elena Vasquez, her intelligence chief, provided regular briefings on Coalition internal politics. The Korthik are having the most difficulty adjusting, Vasquez reported. Their entire culture is based on military supremacy. Suddenly being rescued by an inferior rim species challenges their fundamental worldview. And the others? The Zelthurans are adapting quickly. Commander Vexhai has become something of a celebrity among his people for making first contact with us. The Manthari are practically worshipping us as divine interventionists. Chun nodded thoughtfully. And the refugees? That's where it gets interesting. The civilian populations don't care about politics or pride. They just know we're saving their families. Public opinion is overwhelmingly in our favor. The refugees were indeed humanity's strongest supporters. On the evacuation ships fleeing swarm-occupied systems, stories spread of human vessels appearing from nowhere to escort them to safety. Children drew pictures of sleek human destroyers fighting alongside coalition cruisers. Captain Zelandra, now commanding a joint task force of human and Zelthran ships, saw this support firsthand during evacuation operations in the Outer Spiral. Her mixed crew had become like family, human and alien officers working together seamlessly. Captain, her human tactical officer said, sensors detect swarm scouts in the next system. Standard hive cluster formation. Sub-Commander Torres. She called to the human destroyer accompanying her convoy. Are you ready for another neural cascade strike? Always ready, Captain. These hybrid shield systems your engineers designed are working perfectly. We can get much closer to swarm formations now. The rescue operation proceeded flawlessly. Human weapons disabled the swarm scouts while coalition ships evacuated 3 million civilians from a doomed mining colony. It was becoming routine, the combination of human technology and coalition logistics saving lives across the galaxy, but the swarm was learning too. Intelligence reports indicated the enemy was developing countermeasures to neural cascade weapons. Bioships were appearing with hardened neural networks, distributed command structures that could resist human weapons. Admiral Chun reviewed these reports during a joint strategy session with coalition leadership. The holographic conference now included military commanders from across the galaxy, all united by common purpose and growing respect. The enemy is adapting, she announced. Our initial advantage is diminishing as they develop resistance to neural cascade technology. What do you recommend? Admiral Morden asked. We need to end this war quickly before they can fully adapt. That means dealing with the superweapon in the Helix Nebula. Commander Vexhai leaned forward. Our long-range reconnaissance indicates the weapon is nearly complete. If the swarm activates it ... they won't, Chun said firmly. We're going to destroy it first. The Helix is defended by over 10,000 bioships, General Vices pointed out. Even with our combined fleets, attacking that stronghold would be suicide. Chun's smile was cold and confident. Not if we attack it the right way. We've been developing a new weapon specifically for this target, something the swarm won't expect. Over the following days, the largest military force in galactic history assembled near the coalition core worlds. Human and alien ships worked together, their crews sharing techniques and technologies that individual species had taken millennia to develop. Captain Torres found himself commanding a squadron of hybrid vessels, each one crewed by multiple species working in perfect harmony. His bridge crew included humans, Zelthrans, Korthik, and Menthari, former enemies now united against a common threat. Sir, his Zelthran navigator said, jump calculations complete. The fleet is ready to move on the Helix Nebula. Torres looked around his bridge at faces from across the galaxy. 3 months ago, these species had been strangers. Now they were family, bound together by shared sacrifice and common purpose. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships prepare for final jump. Time to... The Helix Nebula blazed with unnatural light as the largest fleet in galactic history approached its borders. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, watching as over 15,000 ships from 47 different species moved in perfect formation toward their destiny. Fleet status report, she ordered. All battle groups report ready, Admiral, her tactical officer replied. Coalition forces are maintaining formation with our advanced squadrons. Joint command protocols are functioning smoothly. Beside Chun, Commander Vexhai studied the tactical display showing the massive swarm installation at the nebula's heart. The biomechanical structure had grown to impossible size over the past months. It pulsed with dark energy that made space itself seem sick. Intelligence analysis confirms it, he said grimly. That weapon isn't just designed to destroy star systems. It's preparing to tear open dimensional barriers. If the swarm activates it, they'll be able to bring unlimited reinforcements from their home dimension. Chun nodded. Which is why we're going to stop them today. The plan was audacious beyond anything attempted in galactic military history. While coalition forces engaged the swarm's defensive perimeter, humanity's final armada would execute a precision strike on the weapon itself. But success required deploying their most secret technology, the consciousness bomb. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached the command station, carrying a sealed case that contained humanity's ultimate weapon. Admiral, the device is ready for deployment, but I have to remind you of the consequences. Using this weapon will reveal our deepest technological secrets to the galaxy. Understood, Doctor. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice. The consciousness. The bomb represented centuries of human research into the nature of awareness itself. Unlike conventional weapons that destroyed matter and energy, it severed the quantum connections that bound consciousness across space-time. Against a hive mind spread across multiple dimensions, it would be devastating. Captain Marcus Torres guided his destroyer Retribution through the combined fleet, his hybrid crew representing the best of human coalition cooperation. His bridge included officers from 6 different species, all working together with seamless precision. Captain, his Korthic weapons officer said, sensors detect massive swarm movement ahead. They're deploying everything they have to protect that weapon. Torres smiled grimly. Then we'll have to be better than everything they have. Signal all hybrid squadrons, execute attack pattern Omega on my mark. The battle began at the Nebula's edge. Coalition ships, equipped with human neural cascade generators, struck at swarm patrol formations with unprecedented effectiveness. Bioships that should have coordinated perfectly instead found their hive links severed, turning organized formations into confused clusters, but the swarm had learned from previous defeats. New bioship designs appeared, their neural networks hardened against human weapons. Backup command structures allowed damaged vessels to continue fighting even after losing contact with the hive mind. They're adapting faster than we predicted, Vexhai observed as the battle reports came in. Our neural weapons are becoming less effective. As expected, Chun replied calmly. That's why we're not relying on them for the final strike. Deep within the nebula, the superweapon continued its preparations. Dimensional energy gathered around the massive structure as reality itself began to warp. If the swarm succeeded in opening their portal, the war would be lost regardless of any tactical victories. The second phase of the battle saw coalition forces penetrating deeper into swarm territory. Admiral Korthai led a desperate assault. On the nebula's inner defenses, his ships taking terrible casualties to clear a path for the human strike force. Admiral Chun, his voice crackled over the communications system. We're taking heavy losses but holding the corridor open. You have perhaps 30 minutes before our lines collapse. Understood, Admiral. Beginning final approach now. The Terras. Roth and her escort of 50 human vessels moved through the chaos of battle like ghosts. Their advanced cloaking systems rendered them nearly invisible, allowing them to slip past swarm defenses, focused on the more obvious coalition assault. As they approached the superweapon, the true scale of the threat became clear. The structure was larger than some moons, its biomechanical surface crawling with defensive systems and construction drones. Energy discharges between its components created lightning storms in the vacuum of space. Consciousness bomb deployment range in 5 minutes, Dr. Vasquez announced. Chun opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Chun to all vessels. What we do today will determine the fate of every living being in this galaxy. Fight with honor, fight with courage, and fight for the future. The swarm's final defensive line appeared ahead of them. Over 1,000 bioships arranged in protective formations around their precious weapon. These were not the standard vessels they had been fighting. These were evolved creatures, adapted specifically to counter human tactics. Captain Torres led the charge against this ultimate defense. His destroyer, reinforced with coalition armor and shields, drove straight into the enemy formation. Behind Him, dozens of hybrid vessels followed, their mixed crews working with deadly efficiency. Neural cascade ineffective against these new bioships, his weapons officer reported. They've developed immunity to our primary weapons. Then we do this the hard way, Torres replied. All ships, conventional weapons free. Let's show them what happens when the galaxy stands together. The battle became a desperate melee as human and coalition ships fought side by side against the swarm's elite forces. Laser beams and missile salvos lit up the nebula as two very different philosophies of warfare clashed in the darkness. Torres watched his tactical display as ship after ship disappeared from the formation. Good crews, brave people from across the galaxy, dying to protect the future they might never see. Captain, his navigator said quietly, the Retribution is taking critical damage. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Torres looked around his bridge at faces he had come to love like family. Human, Zeltheran, Korthik, Minthari, all of them ready to die for something greater than themselves. Set course for the weapon's primary control node, he ordered. Ramming speed. Sir? You heard me. If we can't shoot our way through, we'll fly our way through. Signal the Admiral, target coordinates locked. The Retribution accelerated toward the superweapon's core, her engines pushing beyond safe limits. Behind her, the surviving hybrid squadron followed, clearing a path through the final swarm defenders. Admiral Chun watched the tactical display as Torres and his crew made their sacrifice. The destroyer's signal beacon provided perfect targeting data for the consciousness bomb, even as the ship itself disappeared in a nuclear fireball against the weapon's hull. Firing solution locked, Dr. Vasquez announced. Consciousness bomb ready for deployment. Chun hesitated for only a moment. Using this weapon would reveal humanity's greatest secrets to the galaxy, ending their technological advantage forever. But the alternative was extinction for everyone, fire. The consciousness bomb detonated not with light or heat, but with something far more fundamental. A sphere of neural silence expanded from the explosion point, traveling faster than light itself. Wherever it touched, the quantum connections that bound the swarm's hive mind simply ceased to exist. The effect was instantaneous across the galaxy. Swarm bioships in every system suddenly stopped moving as their collective consciousness shattered. The superweapon, its controlling intelligence severed, began to collapse in on itself as dimensional energies ran wild. Commander Vexhai watched from his bridge as the massive structure imploded, taking the swarm's dimensional gateway with it. The enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 years was reduced to floating debris and confused individual creatures. All swarm forces have ceased coordinated activity, his tactical officer reported with wonder in her voice. Neural networks are showing complete disconnection across all monitored sectors. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Children who had known only war and evacuation looked up at stars that no longer threatened death from the void. Refugees began planning their return to liberated homeworlds, but the cost had been enormous. The Battle of the Helix Nebula had consumed over 2,000 ships and their crews. Heroes from dozens of species had died to secure this victory, their sacrifice written in the stars themselves. 6 months later, Admiral Chun stood before the memorial wall on what had once been the swarm superweapon. The massive structure had been converted into a space station, a symbol of cooperation and remembrance. Representatives from every coalition species had worked together to transform the instrument of their near destruction into a monument to unity. The political landscape of the galaxy had changed forever. The old coalition had evolved into the Galactic Alliance, with humanity holding a permanent seat alongside the founding species. Some tensions remained, the Korthik still struggled with. Wounded pride, while newer species competed for technological partnerships with Earth. Commander Vexhai, now serving as humanity's primary liaison, often reflected on how much his people had changed. The Zeltherans, who had once prided themselves on military tradition, now studied human tactical doctrine with the enthusiasm of students. The galaxy had learned that